Hi, I'm KS Garner, and you're listening to the Solo Nerdbird podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with writer and creator of the comic Intrusive Thoughts, Anthony Stokes. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us here today. For those who don't know, I'm not sure. I believe I filmed Baltimore Comic Con. You may have gotten caught in that. I'm not sure. I don't really remember. It's back in like October, Halloween. But
October.
yeah, Anthony and I actually met at Baltimore Comic Con. And how did you do? How did it work out? Because I know you shared the table, which I should have done. I should have done that because it was so much harder to make my money back paying for a whole table instead of just splitting it. But how did you do at Baltimore Comic Con?
You know what? I did a decent weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It was really tough getting in. I overcompensate or I overestimate how much time I had because my parents are from my family's from Manassas, Virginia, which is like hour and a half away from Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I can pull up around like 10 a.m. and then be fine. The show started at 1:30, and it was so traumatic. I had to had this dolly that I had to wheel my boxes. I had way too many boxes. So I was tired the first day and then hung over the last day. So it was a mix, you know.
Okay, so you only did Saturday and Sunday. You didn't do Friday.
Saturday wasn't bad. Saturday was the best day.
Yeah. Friday was like tumbleweeds. It was nothing that was going on that day.
Yeah.
So you didn't really miss anything going on that day. There was this one guy, I don't know if you remember the one guy that was like he had the two lightsabers walking around and all in black with the white face
Mm-hmm.
and like black long hair. He was just walking up and down, back and forth. And mind you, Friday, there's nobody there. So you noticed him every single time he did it. It was just weird. He never spoke to anybody or anything like that. So it was weird. Anyway, yeah, we met at Baltimore Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
outside my introduction, Anthony, who is Anthony Stokes and pretty much in your own words?
I'm just a storyteller or storyteller slash content creator. I just really love entertaining people, I suppose
Mm-hmm.
you could say.
Okay, so as a comic book writer and creator, what is Intrusive Thoughts about?
Absolutely. Intrusive thoughts it's really about dealing with mental issues,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And what comes with that and somebody trying to heal themselves, essentially,
Yeah.
in horror. I don't know if you wanted the metaphorical part or like the elevator pitch.
No, yeah,
Um
go ahead. I want everything.
the elevator the elevator pitch is so this guy's he's an orphan. So he's an orphan, and then he has like night terrors, sleep paralysis, all this stuff. And then his sleep paralysis demon bites one of his classmates during the day. So it's kind of like mystery to see how this happened and kind of the fallout from that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll get back more into the mental health aspect of this towards the end of the interview. But could you elaborate on your creative process on Intrusive Thoughts as a whole, just from a thought in your head to working it out as a complete work to now promoting it?
Absolutely. So essentially, I had the idea ever like 12 years ago, 12 years plus. I think maybe inspired by Death Note of the idea of this guy being haunted by some kind of, scary thing as a metaphor for depression. So I had this idea in like high school, probably like, so this has kind of been a premise or an idea for like 13 plus years. And then, oh man, it's so funny is I don't remember the actual there's like the creation process and like the creative process. But I know that I made this because I was getting frustrated with my lack of response from a publisher.
Mm.
So I was like, I did so much homework. I did so much homework. I read so many comics. I read Sandman. I reread Watchmen. I did so much homework. I kind of put myself through comic book boot camp, I think, for like 2 months, where I was just reading everything I could. Chainsaw Man was I'm a big manga fan. Chainsaw Man, Fujimoto was humongous. Was a humongous thing. So that stands out in my mind more so than the actual like ideas, like how did I get from A to Z. I think the idea of just being stalked by a thing is just there's something very it's just like universal. It's like a universal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can think of it like the Final Destination movies is kind of the same thing. It's not a literal thing. It's like being chased, or The Gray with Liam Neeson. I don't know why it's coming to me right now, but he's like being chased by wolves. It's like the idea of just being chased by something is just inherently terrifying. And I
Yeah,
think that's where I built it off of.
how was it, I guess, creating Intrusive Thoughts and like throughout the whole thing, making it your own while still being able to be influenced by these other things like the manga and the graphic novels, like Sandman, The Watchmen, Death Note, everything that you've consumed and you did your homework on. So
Mm-hmm.
how were you able to like do this work? Like this is Intrusive Thoughts is mine, even though yeah, I did my own homework and have influences from this other media.
That is an amazing question. So I think I'm gonna like dance around a little bit. And I'm gonna answer it. So when you're starting out, you imitate. Like it's just natural. You imitate. Like I imitated Judd Apatow, and Quentin Tarantino. The first two movies that the two works that really got me started into writing was Superbad and then Glorious Bastards.
Mm-hmm.
That I watched at the tender age of like 14, way too young. But like everything I wrote was like either super raunchy or like pitch black or trying to be like a black comedy. And what you do as you progress is you get new art and new artists who will inspire you, and then you start to break off and do your own thing. So I'm definitely in the later stage. I've been writing for like 10 plus years. So I'm definitely in the not the later stage, but I'm after the imitation phase. I would say it's just taking all those influences and then just the way it can be as simple as the way you arrange it, and taking different elements. And maybe it may not even be avoiding the influences or trying to do something different, but combining different influences, to make it something new as well. Like Chainsaw Man was a huge influence just because of the tone and the pitch black nature, and then like the black comedy it uses, but you wouldn't watch it and know that, there's nothing. I don't think anybody would read this and think Chainsaw Man, so that's, I hope that answers your question. Very good question.
No, oh well, thank you. But yeah, it answers my questions. But how was the process collaborating with other creators on Intrusive Thoughts? How did you know that they were the right people to invite into your world and work on your story?
I'd worked with DNS before. DNS is the artist. I'd worked with DNS before because he did a couple covers of me for Decay, which are available on my Kickstarter coming up. And so I'd worked with him before. I like his style. It's almost paint like, very atmospheric. So I was like, yeah, he's and we had a great rapport. So I was like, that's him. And then he had a letterer he had worked with it. It's like Lost Doll Island. It's a comic book published through Source Point Press. But her style, it's very bold. It's very like out there, explosive, I would say, with the lettering. And I think it paired perfectly with his illustration. So to me, I felt like I had a dream team, like I felt like it was a slam dunk.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So speaking of Decay, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was it working on that series and how did it differ from Intrusive Thoughts? It's kind of, you're still dabbling in, I guess you can refer to it as like the occult almost in a way, possibly. I don't know if that's too big of a stretch. But yeah, but so how did it differ between the two, between Intrusive Thoughts and Decay?
I think it's both horror, right? I think that's clear. I think of Intrusive Thoughts as like Decay's older brother, right? So Decay is my first thing I'd ever published. And like I said, I've been writing for like 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So I still feel like I had a great understanding of story and characters and theme and stuff like that. But the comic book process was new. It was my first comic book. So I feel like with Intrusive Thought, also with Decay, for me, I wanted to tell a very simple story, 5 issues. I think a lot of the pitfalls that creators get into is they're like, I'm going to make the next saga. I'm going to make the next. And you'll notice that saga went on hiatus like for years. Like these are hard to make. It's publishing through Image, and these creators had to take, I don't know if they had to take a break, but they took a break for an extended amount of time. They have all the resources in the world, like a comic book. You're using your own resources. It's not going to be that easy. You're not, I shouldn't say you're not, but it's hard to try to make like this big epic thing. So I said, I wanted to do like a 5-issue series. It's a revenge in and out, and, to my credit, I like the series is going to be done later this year, So that was the focus. Now with Intrusive Thoughts, it's 6 issues instead of 5 issues. I have a much deeper understanding of the comic book medium, because like I said, I was like, I want to get published. Like that's all I was thinking about while making this. Like, I want to get published. I broke out of that mindset, but in reaching to try to get something that was publishable, I feel like I made a really good comic. So I would just say experience. And I'll also give myself a lot of credit in that. I think there's a drastic improvement in terms of like how to make a comic book from Decay to issue 1 to 2, even I would say, but especially issue 1 to Intrusive Thoughts.
So what advice would you offer to other creators? It can be someone who, wants to create their own comic book. It can be just writing in general. It can be, advice with collaborating with other people, trying to find them and settling on them, or maybe even like having disagreements with a collaborator. So what other advice could you offer to creators, someone that you wish someone would have told you when you first started?
Man, honestly, like this is going to be boring because it's like inside baseball, but margins, man. Like so, like basically when you print a comic book, I mean, non-comic book makers might not know this. There's an area called the trim and then the bleed. So the trim is where it gets cut off. And then the bleed is kind of where they just want empty space to leave the room. I didn't know that, I didn't know that. So I would ask for a cover. I'm like, yo, give me a cover. What size? It'll probably work. And then, so I had to spend like $250 to get it refitted.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even have to do that. Like I could have had my artist just add the borders. It would have taken it probably would have taken him like an hour. But so that was the big thing. But I also feel as if you have to learn these things on your own, And I think that's the bigger point, is just be like, expect to spend a lot of money, more money than you would have thought. Get ready to learn and, just be flexible. I think the biggest thing is success in any industry, but really in comic books, because we have less resources, is like being ingenuity and resourcefulness. You know what I'm saying? Like using everything you have in your disposal, which can be, money. Like, Frank, I have an example. So on Kickstarter, you have the Kickstarter banner, and the banner is like a preview banner, and it's the same dimensions as, say, a postcard. So what people do is they'll get custom made. Some people will just take a cover and cut it in half. I don't like it necessarily. I think you can kind of tell anytime something gets cut in half, it's not going to be optimal as making a new image.
Yeah.
What people do is they take the postcard from that banner, the banner, they'll put on a postcard, and they'll put a QR code for the next campaign. They'll put that in a postcard and ship it with their physical rewards. And it costs, like, if you go through Mixam, which is like one of the more expensive printers, it's like $25 for 100 postcards. So it's something that doesn't cost a lot, but can yield really good results. Like if it costs $25 and then $50, say, to get the custom art done for the banner, that's $75. If your average backer is like $25, which isn't crazy, if 3 people sign up, you've made your money back. It's a wash, and then, so it's little things. I know people are like, I don't want to spend the money, but it's like, you have to I guess you have to pick your spots. Like, what is going to give me the maximum yield for whatever I'm putting in is something to keep in mind, which is business basics. Like, and I see it in the community a lot. People are like, yeah, business, but it's like, all right, sure. But, if it's going to help you make more comics, which is the goal for me, then you might want to pick up a few things,
Yeah, exactly. So throughout this whole process, do you or did you ever get overwhelmed? Does it ever become too much?
I'm overwhelmed right now. I'm exhausted.
And how do you typically manage your mental well-being when it does become too much?
So I'm actually not the best at. I'm not the best at this personally, like the whole taking a break thing. And then I've actually, so in the 2021 going into 2022, like I'm making the issue 1. That's kind of it. And then like most of last year, I'm only making Decay. And then I started 2 new series and now 3 new series, kind of all within the span of the last like 4 or 5 months. So it's been tricky. And I've been on vacation. I'll take like a 3-day weekend vacation and I'm on my phone the whole time, like talking to artists and stuff like that. And somebody at work was like, you need to take a break. I was like, I need a break from work. They're like, you need a break from comics too. So it's, to me, I'm going to take like, I think 2.5, 3 weeks off and just not deal with any, like no comics, no work, and kind of just, like you just separate myself so I can come at it fresh. And I think, unfortunately, there is a culture with comic creators in general, manga creators, maybe especially, where it's just like you just work. And unfortunately, a lot of artists are working themselves to death. It's a very unfortunate thing that happens. And it is something that is very concerning. And we need to correct that. We need to we need to address that. We need to do our best to try to stay right, because you can't tell stories if you're dead. That's how I see it. Yeah,
if you burnt out, you can't really do anything.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I'm definitely burnt out. I'm still moving, but I definitely think I'd be better at certain things with some rest, some R&R.
Yeah. But my last question for you, Anthony, is what is your idea of success? I ask that because as creators, if we're not getting regular paychecks from a full-time job or making consistent revenue from our art, we're considered failures, or we'll consider ourselves failures. Many of us will put our dreams and projects on the back burner or give them up altogether, because this career path can be highly intimidating and competitive. So what is your idea of quote unquote success?
It all depends. I mean, for me, I want to be able to make a great comic book. Like that's my goal, is to like make a great American comic book. Like a Watchmen, like a Sandman. And then whatever comes with that, that's what I would say. And there are a lot of people that would consider it like working full time, in making comics, which is, that's a fantastic goal to have. That's absolutely fantastic. And some people would say, just keep making comics. Like just the act of making a comic makes you successful, which is also true. But me personally, I just want to tell great stories. Truthfully, if I could make something that got like universal acclaim, like I could be happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's like the dream pretty much for everybody, who at least people who create stories. But is there anything else that you want to touch on about Intrusive Thoughts or Decay? I know you just said that you mentioned that Kickstarter that's supposed to be coming out sometime this year, right?
Yeah, the Kickstarter is coming out January 24th. So I'm very excited about that brand new series. So I have like trying out new things. I got, I think 4 covers. Yeah, 4 covers so far, which is the most I've done for a campaign, period. So it's going to be pretty crazy, but I think it's a great comic book, and I think I got some great variant cover artists for the comic book, so I think it's going to turn out great.
So is the Kickstarter for Decay, or is it for Intrusive Thoughts?
It's for Intrusive Thoughts, but Decay is available as an add-on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so and that's the thing. That's the great thing about when you get a kind of a catalog, because you're selling your old stuff and you already pay. If it's print, like I have so many comics in my house, like I pay for all this stuff already. So it's like you're just getting paid on your back catalog, which is also really exciting. And then I have my Decay trade will be out later this year for sure. In time for Baltimore, certainly. That's the big goal. And no, it's like even better, because then you can get it's all about the upsell. It's all about like getting people to spend more money. So that's also exciting, is seeing like, what's it like having a Kickstarter with 2 different series available for purchase. So I'm excited to see how that looks.
Yeah, I was telling a guy, I don't know if you saw it when I was at my table, but the table next to me was empty. So somebody came and took over the table. And I was telling him about how it's easier to sell when you have it's easier to sell like a trilogy of books when you have I guess when the whole thing is finished, and you're more likely to sell the first one only than you would the first 2, because people are less likely to invest in a whole series, especially if it's not finished. Then they're less likely to invest in a whole series than just the one book. So it's best to have like options and have stuff that's finished as well, and have like as more copies of the first one than any of the other 2, like I did in my stuff. So yeah, having a catalog it gives people homework to do a lot of the times.
Yeah.
It garners more interest as well, because it's like, oh, you've been doing this and you've been doing it for a while, or at least long enough to produce a lot more work for me to look at. And so how many are going to be up? Is only going to be the first issue of Decay, or is it going to be?
It's going to be 3 issues. It's going to be issues 1 through 3, and then
you're doing 2 more, right?
2 more, yeah. And it's going to be a double release, so it's going to be 4 and 5 at the same time, which is also new. You know, with Kickstarter, and you always want to try new things. You know, you want to try, I think, at least one new thing a campaign. So yeah, I'm doing 4 and 5, and it's interesting you brought up novels, because what's cool about comics is that essentially you want to get to the trade, because the trade is the best value for the customer. And because, like, let's say a floppy is a single complication. I don't know, just for people that might not know that. And then, like, let's say the floppy is $8 or even like $5, and then the trade is like a trade of a 5-issue series is $15. It's just a great deal for the customer. And I'm curious about this. Like, my table right now is pretty. You saw I was sharing a table with Armin. Shout out to my boy Armin. Mm-hmm. And I had like one rack and like one other comic, and like I try to keep my booth as simple as possible. And my first con, it was Hampton Comic Con. That had to be 2020. Man, I'm so messed. Like, hold on. That was 2021. I don't know. My yeah, that was 2021. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I've been doing all this. I've been doing this and working. So like my time frames are all off.
Yeah,
so
mine too.
I don't have any variants. All I have is the K issue 1, and then a poster prints that are just a copy of the K issue 1, the K issue 1 cover. And then I have like stickers. So I only have like 3 products essentially. Oh. And I messed up. So there's exhibitor tables and there's artist alley tables. I end up getting an exhibitor table, which is like 2 feet wider than the artist alley tables.
Uh-huh.
So I got this huge table. Like I have this like shack length table and I only have 3 products. And I think I got some pity buys, and it was a good experience, because it was like, all right, like I was like, this is going to suck. Like I was just walking through like, this is going to be so embarrassing. But if I can get through this, like I can get through every con after this will be easier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then I went to Baltimore, where I had to park across the street and put money in the meter and rolled everything down like half a mile. And that was definitely worse. But I still learned a lot. I learned a lot from every con, every experience,
I parked at the stadium for free. So
I should have fallen. Yeah, like I said, I think I got there a little late. Were you overnight? Like, did you get there Thursday, or you got there like Friday?
I got there Friday. Friday I had to pay, because that's during the week when you have to pay. But if there's no event or a game right there, that's right where the Orioles Stadium is. If there's no event like a marathon or like a festival or a game, you can park there for free.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of thing. This is my first big con, so it was in some ways it was like the best weekend ever. In some ways, it was like the worst, to be honest. Because I got there late. There was a parking. They were like, oh, there's parking over here, and the parking lot ends up getting filled up. So
yeah,
and then I end up parking. Like in this parking garage. Now I know. I'm getting there Thursday night. Or I'm getting there soup. Yeah, I'm getting there Thursday night. Like it's just worth it. And then I'm not doing the Marriott, because I did the Marriott, and that was like they upsold me on everything. So I mean, like I said, it's just a learning experience,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything is just learning experience, especially if you don't have the resources or the networking to really know what you're supposed to do. Yeah. All right. Well, again, I want to thank the writer and creator of the comic Intrusive Thoughts and Decay, while we're at it, Anthony Stokes, for joining us here today. All of Anthony's socials and website will be listed in this episode's details for those who are interested. Again, I am Kaya Garner, and you've been listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Thank you.